Hello, Galaxy! I'm Chris Perillo, and it's always awkward at the beginning of these live videos because I don't really have an opportunity to begin the stream after I press the start button on the little console software thing that never really works that well. I have to wait until it says, hey, you're really live, and hey, I'm really live once again. Chris Perillo here for another live Star Wars Radar video. Thank you for joining me. Maybe you learned about this live video before it was broadcast by turning on notifications, which you can do if you subscribe to me on this channel. Of course, you may very well be one of the 48,000 plus followers we have on the Star Wars Radar accounts through Twitter. You may also be a part of our chat room. We have an open Discord chat room that anybody can join. It's a small group of people, but it's always Star Wars 24/7, and it's there for you for free anytime, day or night. I've had a few people ask if I've done The Last Jedi review video, and I have not. Here I sit a day after Christmas with a huge, in my estimation, huge Darth Vader stuff haul that I'd like to get to. I'd like to showcase that, but before I do, maybe not today, I do today, right now, want to give my review of The Last Jedi. So thank you for your patience. I really wanted to see it a third time before I did my review. Unfortunately, scheduling didn't work out that way. I will go ahead and let you know that, yes, this is going to be filled with spoilers, although if you have not yet seen The Last Jedi, it's been, what, at least a week or so? Now we're after Christmas. I don't know why you haven't seen it yet. So I sit on one side of the equation, and this seems to be a very divisive Star Wars film, probably the most divisive in recent years. I sit on the side of the fence that happens to have appreciated The Last Jedi, liked The Last Jedi. I can tell you that my experience the first time around seemed to be an anomaly. I had fun. I enjoyed myself. I laughed. I gasped. I was confused, but I was also enchanted. And that's an experience that I don't think has been paralleled, at least in my experience personally. That's an experience. From my perspective, I haven't felt anything like that since seeing Return of the Jedi as a kid. And I remember just thinking, as a kid, watching Return of the Jedi on the screen, the big screen, not on the television screen, certainly not on a pocket computer screen. I remember thinking, gosh, this is it. That's the end of Star Wars. It's done. There's no more. And I was filled with immense sadness. Immense. I can't even begin to explain this to you if you didn't go through that yourself. And so I felt that The Last Jedi took me on a journey and brought me along with it, and I enjoyed it. Every step of the way, I felt that it was a Star Wars movie. That's all I wanted. I didn't walk into it with lofty expectations. You know, I didn't grow up thinking Luke Skywalker became this, that, and the other thing. I didn't find myself invested in the expanded universe or legacy or whatever the heck they're calling it. Legends. Sorry, not legacy. You know, I went in open-minded, and I was like, all right, what is this going to be? And I just, I felt like I was enthralled. I guess I suspended disbelief, which I think is critical when you're watching a fantasy movie. But there are some nerds out there who just can't let go of an idea that never existed in any place apart from their own head. So I happen to be a fan of The Last Jedi. You may be inclined to ask, well then, Chris, where does it rank in the grand scheme of things with all the other Star Wars movies? I have a big problem ranking Star Wars movies. I do. I'm probably an anomaly. I'm probably the only Star Wars fan you know of who just really doesn't like ranking the Star Wars movies in terms of enjoyment. Because I can find something to enjoy in every one of them. Take, for example, Rogue One. Now, this is a Star Wars movie that, I enjoyed. I liked. I think that it would have played better, as I mentioned in my Rogue One review last year, as a miniseries. I think that it lacked an insane amount of character arc and character development, and fell flat in so many ways. That said, I watched Rogue One last night because I hadn't seen it in a while. And I sat there, I opened up some Star Wars figure gifts that I received, and caught up on some of the Star Wars comics that I hadn't taken a look at yet. And I had Rogue One playing in the background, and I'd kind of take a break and read the comic, and then watch the movie, and read the comic, and then open a figure. And it was Star Wars. But that to me is, I guess, all I wanted. That's all I wanted as a kid. It was just another Star Wars movie. And would that blind me from lambasting something that I felt deserved to be lambasted? No. And if you followed me for any amount of time in the 20 years, or probably 25 plus years that I've been sharing my opinions online, you know full well that I have no problem saying I have a problem. And so I've got this video going live. I'm going to be turning to the chat, not necessarily the chat room, although we do have a super chat from Pezliz. Happy Life Day season. May the Force be with you. I've got a critical reading, or I guess a critical resource to hold on to, The Last Jedi, the Visual Dictionary. Love these books. Love this series as kind of a guide to step me through as I go from page to page, just to kind of give my thoughts about various aspects of The Last Jedi, now that I've given you that overarching viewpoint. I, to those who know me locally, have run into people and they said, so what do you think? And then we get into a discussion, a healthy discussion. It's been a mixed bag. Some people like it, some people really don't. And then we talk through certain aspects of the film. I had an old college friend, roommate. He was really upset about it, and he couldn't figure out why. So I'd say, okay, what's going on? What's the problem? And he'd say it, and then I'd respond. I'm like, well, what about this? And I'd throw not necessarily a counterpoint, not necessarily just automatically saying no, that's not the way it is. I'd suggest an alternative point of view to a certain scenario. For example, this is one thing that I guess has bothered some amount of people, as I see if I can find it here in the Visual Dictionary, because there's actually a page or a little bit of information about this particular controversial topic. Some people apparently have an issue with the bombs that are dropped from the bombers. They can't figure it out. Well, here it says they have magnetic attraction plates right there on page 22. So, unless these space vessels are made of plastic, those bombs are attracted, to the gravitational pull, as well as the metal of these larger vessels. So, I don't know how it all works. Do I look like a bomber expert? Do I look like a magnet expert? Magnets, how do they work? Even in space. But it was like, that doesn't make any sense, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, where were you during The Empire Strikes Back that you claim is the best Star Wars movie at all time, when the TIE bombers were trying to get the Millennium Falcon to come out of the asteroid? Where were you then? Was that different? What's going on? No, but it's different, right? Because this isn't The Empire Strikes Back. It's a new film. And we can't just have fun with it. I guess. Some people can't have fun. They want to, get angry about something. I guess, Star Wars happened to be the object of their ire. But, point by point with people, I've talked through these situations where I may see it differently than they do, and have generally not, I wouldn't say come to a conclusion or positive outcome, but definitely having a dialogue rather than just, I didn't like it, well, I really liked it, and then that's it. I think that the word that I've used with The Last Jedi is nuance, and if you don't like complex stories, if you don't like thinking, if you want all the questions answered, if you have a difficult time suspending disbelief, if you want Star Wars to always be the original trilogy, if you don't want it to be the original trilogy, if you're looking for an explanation and everything exactly the way it was and nothing new can happen and all of your wishes and dreams could always come true in every single Star Wars experience that you have, I can see why The Last Jedi may have been disappointing for you. I can. That's reasonable to understand. That's not me. Every review is going to be different. Everybody's review. But I go back to what I had, not thinking about it, just taking it in the first time, because I've seen it twice. The first time I saw it, had a total blast. I mean, and my wheels were turning. I loved the twists and the turns, thinking one thing and then something else happened. I loved that. I loved the unexpected. I have, if I have an issue with film, the biggest issue I have is exposition. I don't want to be told. I don't want to have my hand held. I want nuance. I want, complex stories and abilities to think about themes and motifs and motivations and connecting those dots on my own. I want to, just feel like I'm not getting everything on the surface. And this is something that I found with a great many films that, have garnered, either positive attention or negative attention. Certain films, grow on you. I can't say that The Last Jedi had needed to grow on me, but the second time I saw it, I took it in, certainly. It felt like home. It felt like I was, just like the first time, watching a Star Wars movie. I wasn't as surprised, obviously, when certain things happened, but I think that's where the complexity of the film really shines. You have a chance, and this is what I've been trying to dive deeper into in these individual videos as I stream them live into this channel, talking about some of the themes and the characters and the development and they're part of the story. So I can't cover everything, obviously, in this video. And certainly, if you have any specific questions, this is the best time to ask them. But just to kind of flip through the book, I see a Porg. Some people were upset about the Porg. I liked them. I was like, cool. But then again, keep in mind, I didn't mind the Ewoks either. It's like, wait a minute. I learned later that so many people hated the Ewoks. I'm like, okay. That's what always strikes me is odd. Like, oh, I look online. Oh, that's what I'm supposed to be outraged about. Okay. I was never that way. The Porgs were accommodated because the species of bird, puffins, were apparently protected, and it would have been easier to just accommodate them in the film with a different character or a different a species than it would have been to digitally remove them from the film. And I enjoyed them, little plucky little creatures, fun. I don't know if I had a favorite Porg scene, although I did think it was kind of funny when. I can't remember what part it was, but someone walked. They were in the Falcon, and they walked somewhere, and then you saw like a Porg parent and some Porglets there, and I thought it was like, oh god, it was funny. It was funny. I mean, the entire movie, of course, I thought was rather fun. I thought it began. I mean, certainly with the bang. Interesting, and I really enjoyed the not necessarily the backstory of Paige, but I really enjoyed that plight. I really enjoyed that part and just kind of kicking things off. I thought, of course, it started to begin to give us a better understanding of Poe, which honestly, I saw as a character in The Force Awakens, didn't come close to connecting with him. This time, you can see where he is, where he was, and if he was going to make it. And that is just one character arc that I can't wait to explore further. Finn's motivations were also, different, but every particular... This is what I'm going to bring up here. Finn begins, obviously, in a very myopic way, and set up very well with dialogue. Like, you probably have a million questions, and Finn just wants to know where Rey is, and if Rey's okay. And he follows his own arc, and certain elements that happen in the film and locations are critical. The characters he meets, critical to Finn's evolution. This is what I don't seem to understand. Like, do you not understand, for example, one of the other controversial issues is Kanto Bight, which I thought played perfectly for not just the character Rose, who is absolutely a critical character, the heart and soul of the Resistance. Helped establish her, also helped Finn along his path of really migrating from Stormtrooper, saving his own hide, to truly, finally embracing what he is and what he is elevated to be, and that is rebel scum. It was critical to go to Canto Bight. It was critical to meet DJ, which, by the way, is short for "Don't Join." I learned about that in the visual dictionary as well. But that's what I'm saying. So for Rose on Kanto Bight, it's establishing that she fights for the resistance and she has heart, but she has a heart for these other people throughout the galaxy who come from nothing, like Rey, allegedly coming from nothing. As opposed to expecting, oh, she's a Kenobi, she's a Skywalker, this theory, that theory, the other theory, right? And obviously Snoke is going to survive and he's going to do weird and twisted things, and then the guy gets bifurcated. I'm like, what? It's like, what? So I'm at home, I'm doing this, I'm trying to pull my Snoke figure apart, and it's absolutely not happening. It's just those shocking twists and turns. Every element just interconnects with each other, but not on the surface. It doesn't hand you everything on a silver platter. And some people can catch that immediately. Others not so much. I come from a background of appreciating well-written works. I'm a writer by trade, English major by degree, and so that's what has me latching on to The Last Jedi, knowing full well that the more conversations I have, especially with controversial situations, the better understanding I have of having the same experience with the film, as well as an understanding I may be able to help convey to somebody else. I said, well, Kanto Bight had to happen. Rose establishes herself as outreach for the, what's his name? Trevon Bragg? Give me a second. The broom boy actually has a name, and it is listed here on page 63, Pablo Hidalgo. Thank you. I love you, although I gotta tell you, Pablo, not to disappoint you, I think I love you more for your Transformers art than your Star Wars lore and wisdom. Temri Blag, right there, Tamiri Blag, right there. And, connecting with him, connecting with the fathiers. And by the way, there's stuffed fathiers now. My daughter Jedi got one for Christmas yesterday. She loves it. It's really big. You can stand it up on its own. It's amazing. She's showing her heart. She's showing, as I spit all over the book, I'm getting excited. It's like, I just love talking about this stuff. So, where they meet DJ by accident, and DJ helps again push Finn along, and DJ's sitting there going, and remember, DJ's short for don't join. I believe that's what's written in Arabesh, or Galactic Basic, on his cap. He's sitting right there in the middle. He says, hey, Finn, don't join. Just don't do it, man. There's bad guys on both sides, good guys on both sides, which, by the way, is thematic to, you might remember, the prequels, right? There are good and bad people on both sides, and there's a lot of, messiness involved. And certainly Finn finds himself, squarely in the middle of that. Maybe a different kind of heart and a different want for, helping than Rose. But taking them to Kanto Bight and establishing a different contingency of the galaxy that is very critical to pulling the strings. How do these things get built? Who sells them? Are they profiteering? Obviously. I mean, hello. I mean, if you didn't want to suspend disbelief, there you go. That happens in real life. So every moment I thought was well placed, well done. I mean, the first time around for a different reason than the second time around. Some people found themselves better appreciating the film the second time around, much like, and I guess this is the closest equation I have, and I'm not drawing an exact parallel here, but Cloud Atlas, which I do believe was a novel, didn't read it, watched it. I watched it on a plane. I'm like, okay, that was kind of interesting. And then I watched it a second time. I'm like, whoa, I missed that the first time. And then the third time, I'm like, huh. Fourth time, I'm like, I love this film. I love Cloud Atlas. But to love it, I had to understand and appreciate and make connections and see things differently that you don't see on the surface. And I feel The Last Jedi, for that reason and that reason alone, could very well be, and this is going to be very controversial, could very well be the most rewatchable Star Wars film out of the, 9 now that have been produced? Most rewatchable. Because of all the subtleties, the complexities, the nuance. That is, in my estimation, what makes it a fantastic film. And man, sorry. This page is now waterlogged. I don't know why I'm drooling on. I talk about Star Wars and I start drooling. So, it's not it's not a summer blockbuster. It's not, you know, and this may be controversial too, but the, and by the way, I don't hate you if you don't like the film. I don't care if you like the film or not. I care about you, but, you know, I can't sit there and translate my experience. I can't sit there and pretend to see it from your point of view. I can only see it from mine. This is what makes it my review. You don't like my review? Do your own. So I had to put that out there. Sorry, I didn't, you know, encapsulate at the beginning of the video. But you know, it's controversy after controversy after controversy because certain people had different expectations and built. I think just had a different idea or having a different feeling for what the film could have been, including Mark Hamill, who's now come under fire for having, you know, said very controversial things himself, saying, you know, I didn't really feel Ryan was doing the right thing for the character. You know, ultimately, though, I think people have been reading between the lines with what Mark has said, and he's only had to go back, and he had to put a finer point on it. I think Mark better understands exactly why Ryan did it, because people were expecting something else. Do you want to expect everything? Do you want all your wishes to come true? I don't. I knew going into The Last Jedi, I would have more questions coming out of it than what I did going into it. And I love that. I love that. I didn't know how it was going to be. Would I have done it differently if I was directing? Sure. Would you have? Absolutely. But I understand how certain people could be turned off by what is basically in place, especially with such a core character like Luke. You know, people are expecting Luke to be this, you know, amazing, you know, complex person, and he is. So I'm just for argument's sake, and I realize that we also have another super chat here live. He says, Veronica R said, I liked the movie, but I was sad about Luke. I wasn't sad. I don't know how I feel about Luke in terms of when he basically gave himself up to the Force. There's a lot to talk about and break down with that. I actually have a separate video topic brewing in the head about how it's interesting in terms of his character development in relation to other characters that he knew in the film who pretty much gave themselves up to the Force as well. Think Ben Kenobi, Yoda. Interesting, but he found his own path. So Luke is beaten. I mean, he was beaten before Rey came to that island, obviously, and he even says it in the film. He's like, dude, like, I'm done. Shuts himself off from the Force, disappears, doesn't want to be found, doesn't want to be uncovered, doesn't want to train, doesn't want to do any of that, which, by the way, Yoda didn't really want to train Luke either. You know, for all those of you revisionist history in your head there, Yoda's got a different path than Luke. But Luke, he's been through a lot that we haven't necessarily seen, that we can't even begin to understand. And let me tell you this. In my, now, I guess, going on 20 years of doing what it is that I do, and by and large, I produce media, either for myself or for businesses and companies. I have a media production company. I'm an executive producer. Sounds like it's an amazing position. It's fun, but in all my years of doing what it is that I do, I can tell you, I can see how Luke feels beaten, defeated. He sees the Jedi differently than you do. Because you've seen the Jedi from afar. You're not a Jedi. Hate to break it to you. You can pretend, but you're not. You haven't walked that path. You've only seen it. It's like Luke's lightsaber. And I want to say, and I wish, I can't take credit from this perspective, but we see this icon, and I don't know where this came from, don't know who said it. We see this icon differently than Luke does. Luke's been using that, you know, that lightsaber. He had that lightsaber. He knows its history. He sees it differently than you do. You have an emotional connection to it. He doesn't necessarily, or his emotional connection is going to be radically different than yours. Because he's been through it. You haven't. So you have to understand his motivations. I guarantee you, if you get 20 years into your career and you see the same industry that you've been operating in the same way 20 years from now, because what was the time span, 20, 25 years between the two? You know, if you see things the same way, wow, you are very special. you are very blessed. Because I can tell you, I don't. I can't think of anybody who has done something for that long and has worked that deeply with anything feeling the same way as they did as a bright-eyed, bushy-tailed farm boy from Tatooine. Generally doesn't work that way. So now, imagine, now that's just a career. Imagine your own career, 20 years, if you've even been alive that long, your own life, doing something for that long, coming out the other end, feeling the same way. Shock, it's probably not going to be possible. Layer on top of that, knowing full well that you could have been the reason that, at one level, your nephew turned to the dark side, or was basically destroyed, and vicariously destroyed what was likely your best friend. Luke could have very well been responsible for Han's death. Pretty much directly. So, all that weight on Luke, how did you expect him to react when Rey handed him his lightsaber hilt? How? How would you react? This is what I'm saying. Like, this is not like a huge leap in logic, people. It genuinely isn't. So I understand that some people just don't like, but it's I understand suspending disbelief, but it's so realistic. We were expecting one thing because that's how stories are supposed to be. That's what is supposed to happen in these films. And that turn, that quick turn, and then just this cranking of the wheel makes it such that episode 9 is now even more of a mystery, right? It's like, wait a minute, this is what's going to happen. Well, this couldn't have happened now, because now what's next? What's going on? And I love that. Do you want to know everything that's happening in episode 9? I don't want to know. I want to wait and appreciate it when it is out, and then take it in context, not just a standalone film unto its own, but also in this arc. Remember, I said I can't fully judge either the Force Awakens, The Last Jedi, or the final film in this trilogy. I can't fully judge it until all three are done. But there's like I said, there's just so much to unpack. I don't think The Last Jedi is a good first Star Wars movie for someone to watch. I still kind of go back to, episode 4's a good one, for a lot of different reasons, because a lot of what we know of Star Wars is revolving around the Skywalker family, up and until this point. For a lot of, different reasons. Some people were put off by Leia finally, definitively exhibiting Force powers. I'm like, whoa, because I was like, that's how it's going to be. Because, of course, outside of canon, we know Carrie Fisher passed away. And so we know that, according to Disney, they're not going to bring her back or anything. And I think that's the right decision to make. But just seeing her go, I'm like, that's how she goes. And I thought to myself, I'm like, that's how she goes. It was nice to see that Kylo didn't pull the trigger, although it kind of makes you question where Kylo's at, right? He had no problem with his dad, but his mom, there's a fine line. He couldn't do it himself. The Force wasn't willing it. But to see her go, I was like, I was like, that, to me, immediately I thought, that's not a death fitting of Leia. And everything that she's been through, I was like, that's just not, it's not fitting for her. I felt Luke, his ultimate effective, his giving himself up to the Force, I felt was fitting for him. But that when Leia got sucked out after the bridge got blown out, it wasn't fitting. And so when there's that hand, like I'm like, I was like, yes, finally, we know. We know that the Force is in her. We kind of had the glimpses, like she felt something, a disturbance in the Force going all the way back to The Empire Strikes Back, right? When she's like staring like blankly with her connection with Luke. We've known about it, but never really had anything to kind of latch on to. This, by the way, this is important. Why is this important? Why do we need to see Leia exhibiting these Force powers? Why? in such a definitive way, not just kind of like this, oh, I get this ooky feeling, right? I mean, you get feelings every so often. Does that make you a Jedi? I don't think so. Now, flying through space, you know what, you're being put, whatever's making it go. And here's another question I had, and I don't know how to define this, but maybe that wasn't Leia's consciousness. Maybe that was the Force moving through Leia, because the Force knew that Leia wasn't done. Now, that I've established that as a possibility, as a theory, that the Force left her alive. Leia didn't will herself to survive. Maybe that was the Force moving through her. It's a possibility. So I'm willing to suspend disbelief. Come on, it's fantasy, people. Jesus. So, okay, I'm not going to get religious here, although some people want to get religious. So, at the end of the film, Luke has given himself up to the Force. Rey is finally starting to understand that her own, her own drive, she has to drive her own destiny. She can't rely on somebody else necessarily, but she's still needing that assistance, that guide. Some people have suggested, well, Luke could come back as a Force ghost, maybe Yoda, maybe, Obi-Wan, someone, connected to Rey in some way, shape, or form. But who is she sitting with at the end of that film? Leia. So here you have Rey, who is, a neophyte, right? Who has a very firm grasp on knowing that there's something inside her that she's got to figure out. Then you have not a Jedi Master sitting akimbo. You have Leia, who understands the Force enough, but isn't a master. So you have Leia, who has a different understanding of the Force, next to Rey, who's just beginning to understand her powers. Leia has an opportunity to effectively be Rey's guide and give her a different understanding of the Force than a Jedi Master. And I think, man, I was like, oh, are we going to see that play out in 9? Probably not. But think about how Rey and her understanding of the Force can develop differently with Leia as her guide compared to a quote-unquote traditional Jedi Master. Again, this is like ripping things away. Like, from what we understand about the Force and the Jedi and all this stuff, like, anybody can do it. It doesn't belong. Luke is just screaming at you, saying it doesn't belong to the Jedi. And I think all of those messages and all those themes were just perfectly presented. It was really neat to see that. It was so cool. That's something that I enjoyed. It's something that has meaning. It's not bubblegum. And as much as The Force Awakens played it safe, I enjoyed it for different reasons. I also felt, as I mentioned the first time in my first reaction, The Force Awakens was too short. I now understand why it was probably better off where they ended it, but I thought this was a complete film. I thought, it gave me all sorts of feelings that I'm still, in the process of working through. But by no means was this a disappointing film. By no means. If you found it disappointing, okay, maybe you got to see it again. If you still see it as disappointing, okay, maybe it's not for you. But I'm careful. Hang on just a second. Yeah. Yes? You got Star Wars what? You got... Sorry, my daughter Jedi. She's telling me she's got Star Wars something. Star Wars what? A box? Oh! I got her, the Star Wars socks, 12 days of socks. Everything's half off today. So they normally were $15. I got them for $7.50. So every day she gets to open up a new sock. And I got one for her mom too. So, my wife. So every day they get to open up a new pair of socks together. Kind of neat. Half off too. So, anyway. I think this is a dish that you can't... You have to just take a bite. Let it settle. Take another bite. Let it settle. If you're expecting things to be handed to you, it doesn't surprise me. Now, maybe you're not. Maybe you're someone who does appreciate nuance, and you were still disappointed, and you didn't understand why this, that, and the other thing didn't quite, fit together in a perfect, to make a perfect puzzle. Like I said, I'd be thrilled to talk through this. As I did, my friend from college, my old roommate, he said, "There's so many plot holes." I'm like, Like what? And he mentioned one, and I said, like, without even thinking, like, what about this as a cogent explanation? And at the end of that, I think it talked him off the ledge. He's like, well, you know, you got me thinking differently about it. And I'm like, you, everything got flipped on its ear, which I love. I adore. It was just, I can't let go of that initial feeling of fun. That is the best way I could review the film, by just telling you what I felt. You know, think about that, right? You know, I felt a great disturbance in the Force. I felt it. It was just fun. Could I explain why the first time out? No. But the more I thought about these complexities and these intricacies, it just got more and more compelling for me. And The Force Awakens, I think, had an almost opposite effect for me. It was a different kind of film. There were things that we had to think about and work through, but nowhere near this level. Nowhere near this level. As I mentioned, I've got a few things that, I do want to cover separate topics in future videos in this channel live. I apologize that I did not do a video yesterday. It was Christmas, so I know that, I can't do everything. Hopefully you didn't expect a video on Christmas. Hang on just a second. Yes, honey? What? Well, open just one. Are you showing it to mommy? I hope she's talking to mommy. I'll just mention as I'm flipping through the books, singular, anything else I may have skipped. Admiral Ackbar. He's just a bit role. He's a fan favorite, right? I do not believe he would have helped the story if he was the one to survive rather than Admiral Holdo. Not that I'm necessarily, I can't wait to dive into Leia, Princess of Alderaan, to read the backstory between Leia and Admiral Holdo. Amelin? Is that? I haven't memorized her name. What, honey? You got her? Okay. But it would have changed the dynamic. I mean, because Poe and Admiral Ackbar would have had a prior relationship, and I think part of that friction between Poe and anybody would have been more exacerbated with a relatively new person at the helm. So I think Holdo was critical. I'm sad to see Admiral Ackbar go. I remember mailing away from that for that action figure as a kid as well. Still have my original Admiral Ackbar as well. Finn, I thought progressed very, very well. And I'm sorry, I'm just looking at the Finn page. I loved when he was walking around with the back to the suit, just kind of water was going everywhere. I thought it was pretty funny. Some people say, oh, it was too humorous. I'm like, do you want to be serious about a Star Wars movie? I'm like, no, but I don't want to be serious, but I don't want it to be too funny. I'm like, I didn't think it was too funny. It was fun for me. I thought, like I said, Leia, had a wonderful arc, very well incorporated. Poe had an amazing arc in this film, as I've kind of alluded to. And I will be, like I said, diving deeper into these because I think that each one of them warrant their own, video, because otherwise I couldn't cover everything. I was surprised that Paige, given that we knew a little bit about her before the movie, basically, did her thing at the beginning of the film, but it was also setting up some motivations for Rose as the film continued. I loved the beginning when Poe was basically tooling with General Hux. I was like, oh man, and I may have been the only one laughing at that part. I'm like, oh dude, and Hux is like, you will blah blah blah, because he's all pomp and circumstance, blah, 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 blah. And Poe's like, okay, I'll hold. And at one point, and I think it's mentioned in the visual dictionary, he refers to General Hux, Poe, at the beginning of the film, as General Hugs. I just think that's funny. Kylo, I thought again was just, there's so many mysteries that we have to, that we have to kind of pry away to kind of dive deeper into. And where's he going to be? We also, I think, have set the stage for potentially the Knights of Ren coming back in Episode 9, because now there's no infrastructure, right? He needs people around him that he can trust. I would be shocked if the Knights of Ren did not come back in 9. I'd be shocked. I mean, would I be disappointed? Maybe a little, but I don't think, as long as it didn't take away from the film, I think he needs people he can trust. And the Knights of Ren are people that he could trust. What, honey? She was saying something. Now it's the dog that's barking. The Holdo maneuver, when Admiral Holdo went through. Sorry, I'm at now the page with the supremacy. When she basically turned the ship around and blasted through it at light speed. There's been a suggestion that now that she's done that, you can't. Now the cat's out of the bag, you can't get it back in. So why hasn't that been done before? Are other ships going to do the same thing? Are they going to put droids at the helm and effectively change space warfare indefinitely? That's a possibility. But I was taken aback. I was like, and I guess some people in theaters were disappointed that there was no sound during that part of the film, and that needed to be explained to them. To me, if you needed to have the silence at the part of the film where this happens intentionally, I'm not sure if you really deserve the complexities of everything that The Last Jedi has to offer. Snoke, I thought, was wonderfully evil. I thought he was so well done in this film. So Andy Serkis was a genius, a madman, a genius. I mean, he was just his intonation. I mean, all the way down to the mocap expressions. I'm like, ooh, it was real. That's probably beyond Gollum. That's probably one of the only mocap characters that I just felt. It was gone. I was like, wow, I'm really looking at someone there. Oh, so well done. So well done. The Praetorian guards during that battle. Can't wait to watch that over and over. And though I'm not really someone who's like all, gung-ho on the battle stuff, I got enough battling here, there, and everywhere to make it feel like a Star Wars film and kind of like, whoa, what's going to happen? How are they going to do this? Someone mentioned to me the other day, there really wasn't a true lightsaber battle in this movie. I wasn't disappointed. So I'm just flipping through. Rose Tico, again, the heart of the Resistance, right? The soul of the Resistance. And I thought her line, and there's so many to just peel away and dive deeper into, but her line really made it for me at the end of the film. We're going to win not by destroying what we hate, and I'm paraphrasing, but by saving what we love, or saving what we love. And I was like, oh, wow. I'm like, wow. Like, that to me, I think Rose has the heart of the Resistance. Some people would say, oh, it's Rey. I'm like, nah, I don't think it would be Rey. It's not, Rey's on her own journey. I don't know. It isn't Finn. Rose encapsulates everything that the Resistance is, uprising and coming from nowhere and coming from nobody, but fighting for something you believe in, and not by destroying what you hate, but by saving what you love. And I mean, it's beautiful messaging. If there was a weird part, it was Rose's awkward kiss of Finn, and I think Finn reacted the same way the rest of us did, like, where did that come from? Rose is socially awkward. Rose may have misread cues. She just went through this experience with Finn. She may have seen Finn and put him up on a pedestal, as we've seen at the beginning of the film. Is it unrealistic? No. Is there a romance blossoming? I don't think so. It was as much of a surprise to me to see her kiss Finn as I think it was like watch Finn's reaction. Just like when Rose and Finn had the same reaction to the audience when they saw BB-8 was controlling the Skywalker. They're like, that can happen? But this film was so meta. There were so many times during the film that it felt like they weren't just talking to each other, they were talking to the audience. Like Luke Skywalker saying, this is not going to end how you think it's going to end. Like they're telling you! Like it's foreshadowing, they're talking to you! And those are the moments that I thought, kind of made the film leap out of being a film. And as much as I felt I was connected to the Star Wars galaxy before, I really felt like I was, because I felt they were pulling me in. I felt like I was a part of that story. Not as an observer, but like feeling like they're talking to me. They're actually hearing and feeling what I'm feeling, and it's going this way for them, and I'm a part of it. So, like I said, that meta part, and I'm not the only person to call this Star Wars movie the most meta ever. I thought it was very well done. There's Vice Admiral Holdo, very well portrayed by Laura Dern. I thought that she brought to the character what needed to be done. Temple Island, this is another great reason to pick up the book. Really neat. Caretakers were what they needed to be. I just see these pictures here, and of course I'm just speaking around them. Another nice little callback was when R2-D2 did the cheap shot and played the old message of Leia. I thought that was pretty neat to see. I mean, I didn't get the feels. I didn't cry at any part. I didn't get emotional or anything. But I was like, okay, that would be a way to get Luke. But although Luke at that very moment says, I'm not leaving this planet, he was right. He never left the planet, at least not physically. Rey, I thought, again, she's setting herself up for a path that she believes she needs to be on, but finds herself at the end, having to face a lot of these things on her own. And instead of relying on, an external locus of control, she's recognizing more and more that it's internal, that she's driven further within herself, and she's not defined by her bloodline or by family or by external factors, but by those intrinsic motivations, which cause her to want to face off against Snoke, if only to save Kylo so that the galaxy, can be left in good hands if Luke is not willing to effectively pick up his, as he put it, laser sword. Chewbacca, loved seeing him again. My favorite scene with Chewie was with the Porg when they were, he was getting ready to eat one and kind of had this feeling of maybe, is Chewbacca going to become a vegan? I doubt it. Kanto Bight was a lot of fun. I thought, I enjoyed every aspect of it. The little character who got, was trying to throw coins into BB-8 was actually voiced by Mark Hamill. There's a little bonus. I love those types of scenes, though. I think they're a total blast to just kind of look. I love aliens. I love those kind of creatures. I love seeing them at least. There's the Master Codebreaker. Kind of glad that he didn't, play a role as I thought he was going to play. But this creature here, Ubla Mulbro, was actually, I think, an opera singer. Yeah, she's an opera singer, right there. That's why she's like, ah, when they're like, riding through the scene that was foreshadowed when Rose said, "I wish I could just take a big fist to this entire town," and they did. That was a lot of fun, a fun little romp. DJ again, a critical role that we may see come back, but basically not having a side. I mean, this is your Lando type of character. This is your rogue without a backstory tied into the characters that we've known. I had fun with them. I thought the way that he was portrayed was pretty neat. He'd be like, and then he'd have this panache, like he was the style that was brought to the character. I thought was great. Captain Phasma again. Nice to see another, background type of role. Would I like to see her have done more? Possibly. I figured she'd come back, and of course, reading the brief comic series, we knew that was going to happen. I don't think she's dead. I don't think she's gone. She made it out of the trash compactor, and if the comic arc, it's a 4-issue set. Pick it up. It'll explain exactly kind of what happened and why it's possibly important. Why she is hell bent on eliminating Finn. There is a huge reason. I don't want to ruin the comic story for you, but all you have to do is read the comic. You'll understand how it plays very well into The Force Awakens and bridges the gap for her and why it is critical that she kills Finn. And if you think about it, you'll understand it as well. It's a pretty quick read. Executioner, it's just a fun, there's a new design. Interesting story about the Executioners. Different people they assume that role on a random basis. And the only people who know who is the Executioner for any particular rotation happen to be their officers. So everybody has to be an Executioner, and so you don't know that you are executed, who's executing you, and you know that it's a member of your team, but you don't know who on that particular team. I love the Battle of Krait. I thought it was kind of fun. Didn't remind me or, make me feel like, I'm watching The Empire Strikes Back kind of in reverse order. But I really liked the face-off between Kylo and Luke. Was also surprised that he was projecting. But, that's something that, was kind of inevitable, a face-off, right? But I, again, really, really thought that everything played not as I expected it to play out, but in such a fashion that I felt like I was along for the ride. I didn't feel like I was like at any point jostled and thrown from my seat. But I enjoyed it. I truly did. I've got a lot to talk about in specific topics as I have over the past week or so. I still do plan on seeing it at least one more time in the theater before it leaves. I'll use my special passes. I got some free passes. I haven't been able to use them. It's kind of been busy in and around the holidays. But before too long, I did want to be able to dive a little deeper into my particular review and give you some reasonings. But anyway, that's how I feel. I enjoyed it. If you didn't, I don't care. Because that's not... You hating the film or not liking the film is not going to take away from my enjoyment. It's not going to make me go back and say, you know what? I didn't have fun. Because I did. You can hate that. You can hate that all you want. That is more of a character trait on your part than it is on mine. Don't project your own insecurities onto me, pal. I think I'm going to wrap up. I've got, a few comments here, although I haven't really necessarily read, or haven't seen too many questions that would dive too further into it. I do see one little ignorant remark, possibly. I'm not shocked Chris likes the SJW parts of this film. Dude, Jedi are SJWs. At what point did you think the Empire was the good guys? Like, who's more shocked here? Jedi are SJWs. If that surprises you, you've never seen Star Wars. You've never understood Star Wars. You've never loved Star Wars. That's the truth. I'm going to go ahead and wrap things up. Thank you very much for paying attention. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for joining the chat room if you have. Following on Twitter, turning on notifications for the videos in this channel, watching. I appreciate that. Maybe even asking questions that can inspire future videos. I'm going to head downstairs now because Jedi seems to be fitting around, and I've also got to figure out what the heck she was talking about a few minutes ago. I love you. I appreciate you. And at this point, I'm going to leave you to your own devices. May the Force be with you.